So what Mac in the Mac lineup should you buy? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, and this is an opinion piece only, my opinion only, what I want to do though is, a lot of people come to me and they say, well, what Mac should I get? There's going to be the Mac Minis, the Airs, the Pros, the iMacs, you name it, the Studios. Which Mac should I get right now, and who is this good for? What I want to do in this video is I'm just going to share my screen, show you Apple's website right now, and then go through all the different models really quickly. I'm going to try to keep this quick and just show you what I think these computers are used for, what are they best for, like who should be buying these, and then what is the best model or the best configuration you should buy for the price, all right? And I'll give some reasons for it. Again, it's my opinion, but I've been doing this a long time. I have a lot of Macs, as you can see, and I keep buying them for some reason. I think I'm crazy. But at the end of the day, I love doing it, so I just want to see if I can help some people out there and put some comments in here, but keep them civil because this is just an opinion piece. Let me know what you think, if I'm off, I'm way off, or I'm right on. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with the Mac Minis. And if we look at my screen here, here it is on Apple's website. Now, who should be buying these? I think these are great starter systems if you want to just get into the Mac ecosystem, all right? And you already have a monitor that's good. So you look here, you can get this for usually $499 on sale. It's $599 right here. Now there's only going to be 3 Macs that I recommend getting with 8 gigs of RAM, and I'm going to go through all of those. This is one of them. I recommend getting this base model. $499 usually on sale. You get into the ecosystem, you get to see what the Mac's all about. There's a problem here though, is the fact a lot of the Mac, the reason you want to use a Mac is because of that beautiful screen. And here, if you have a really crappy screen like a 1080p or something, you're not going to get the full experience, but at least you're going to get the OS. So I think this is going to be for these type of people. Now these systems are still very, very capable, mind you, all right? So the problem is a couple things. So if you buy this, obviously with 8 gigs of RAM, 256, you're limited on space and disk. And if you go in here, what I recommend doing is really just only upgrading maybe one thing here. I would go up to 16 gigs of RAM on this system and maybe spend $699, $799 in this system and top it off there on these base models. Because if you get into anything, if you start adding some more space and everything and you're getting up in this range, you might as well just get something like this over here, which is going to be a MacBook Air, which is going to have the screen where you can take it with you, or you can connect it to your screen at home, so you're going to get that additional capability. So at the end of the day there, I think that you really want to keep this in that $799 range. Now you can skip this middle one because that's what I just talked about. This one big leap over here is only for people that know that they need this, all right? So if you're doing video editing, you're doing music production, something that makes you think you're going to need something like this, then you make the jump up to this Pro chip over here. This is the M2 Pro, $1299. This is a beautiful system for people, and at this price, I mean, like again, you have you basically get 16 gigs of RAM and you get 512 SSD here for $1299. I recommend making really no changes to that. Leaving it as is, doing your, if you're a small YouTube channel, medium YouTube channel, that's going to be more than you need right there. Leave it alone. $1299 is a great price as long as you have that monitor that you can use that's going to be high quality and you're going to get that full ecosystem. Basically, you get into the ecosystem, but you also get the full experience with a better screen. That's the problem here. You need a good screen. All right, so the iMacs. Now the iMacs, let's take a look at the screen here. Here we are. So they came out with the new M3s, and they're very good machines, but they're always kind of very niche. A lot of people don't buy these. The first one here is great for things like kiosks at places that want to look very elegant, hotels and stuff like that. This is the second Mac I say you can buy 8 gigs of RAM on right here, 8 gigs of RAM. So $1299 for this, you get the 8 gigs. You're going to be able to do just about anything on here that, watching YouTube and just doing basic schoolwork. So you buy this if you just want it for maybe a home computer that sits and you do your bills on, or you just do travel agency stuff. That's very good for this system, $1299, and then you get that beautiful screen. The reason I recommend this to people that are just getting into the Mac ecosystem is because you do get that 4.5K screen, which is really half of the experience with Macs, and you get to learn why I love Macs so much with my other iMacs. And so I think it's important. I mean, the Mac Mini is good that's such a cheap cost, but you do get to miss half the the experience with Apple, which is just the beautiful screens. And here you get it. This is one of the best screens out there. So this is what this is for over here. And maybe people in college that just are maybe in literature or they're in math or in something where they don't need super, super high-end stuff. When you get into other things like 3D modeling, then what you want to do is look at these other systems. Now, I don't think this is a bad idea. As you can see here, you don't really need, here's the main difference here. So these are the 8-core GPUs. This is 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU. I don't even think there's much of a difference, just looking at from my experience and benchmarks on these two chips right here. You do get the extra ports on this middle system. You also get, Ethernet if you need it and stuff like that, and the Magic Keyboard. What I recommend though is if you're going to build this out, I would select this base model over here. And what you want to do after selecting the base model is you want to go up to 16 gigs of RAM, and I'll tell you why you want to do this. Then you want to go to 512, all right? And you have $1,700, $16.99 right there. You can usually get it on sale. So for $16.99, this is a great system if you're going to be doing, if you know you don't need a laptop, you're going to be home all the time, and you want to do video editing for a YouTube channel about my size. That's the perfect system for it. You don't want to start spending a lot more. This is going to be smaller than the 27-inch over there, and the 27-inch used to start at $18.99, so I think this is a very fair price. You get a lot of power here. It's going to even be faster. You get the 16 gigs of RAM. You're not running into that 8 gig threshold. So this is the system you buy here if you want to go ahead and get into the ecosystem, but you also want to do some video editing and stuff like that, and you don't want to break the bank going over $2,000. Here it is right here. You get both experiences of the monitor and the system working together. It's a great system, but you just don't get caught any, I wouldn't go much higher than that. Otherwise you want to start getting into the pros and stuff like that. I think that's kind of where you want to be on that system. All right, so the MacBook Airs are another tough one because there's so many different models. So what I recommend is you can see here on Apple's website, they still have it listed as $999, but you can usually pick these up for $749. So if you are going to be just a basic user, email, browsing, just you're not going to do video editing or anything special like that, the M1 MacBook Air is still being sold for $749. For $999, don't get this. Do not get this. $749, get this with 8 gigs of RAM. It's a great system. You can see it over here right now. I think it's on sale for $849 on Amazon. Even that's getting a little high. I would stick to $750 for this. But still a good system. For the 13 and 15 inch, you're really just juggling the size there. Do you want something small or do you want something larger, right? And as you kind of go down here, this is the problem with this. Now, I think one of the best configurations at the 13 inch right here is just going with the base model, all right? You don't need the extra 2 cores of GPU. It's not going to make much of a difference. And then what you want to do is you want to select this, pick this base system, and then go up to 16 gigs of RAM there. So for $12.99, you're getting a 16 gigabyte system, 13-inch footprint, and it's going to be a great system. Use external storage. Again, all this stuff, you can get cheap Samsung drives and stuff. You don't need the expensive Apple drive, especially when you're starting out. Now, for this kind of a system, you're going to be doing a lot of school work on this. You're going to be doing some light video editing. And if you're just checking email, video conferencing for work, this is just a great workhorse of a system for work, for doing just various tasks. If you know you need something faster, you know you don't need this, obviously. But if you're just starting out, or if you're just a basic user of just normal computer, like anything you do on Windows, this can do it and then some, plus the video editing. So I would stick to that. 15-inch gets a little bit more hairy here. So again, we're in the Airs here, so the same kind of process. These are the same speeds as the one I just talked about. But here, you get into a little bit more of a problem. So let's say you go with the base model over here, and you start going in here. It's $12.99 to start, and you go up to 16 gigs of RAM. Already you're at $14.99, all right? So if you think you're going to get the Air here, but you want to go with either 16 gigs of RAM and additional storage, you're at $16.99 now. $16.99. As soon as you get to that point, I think you need to start considering right over here, $15.99 for the MacBook Pro. Because it's going to be a better value, and I'll explain why in a second. Obviously, though, you are getting, you're going to be getting more RAM here, so you got to understand with the 15-inch, you're going to be getting more RAM, but it's going to be more expensive than the Pro model. So I think this is a tough one. So I like to stick to the bases on this, like this $12.99, and then just pick one thing on these. Like if I want to go with the Air, I'm just going to either pick more RAM or more disk. Here, I'd always pick the RAM, though. And then for the disk, obviously, I'm going to always, if I want to upgrade, I'm going to just use external storage. I'm not going to really do it through Apple. So that's kind of my philosophy on the Airs. Always choose the base model, pick either the RAM or the space, but always pick the RAM. And don't usually go for these higher models because then you butt up against the model in front of it, and it doesn't make a lot of sense financially. But these systems are great for most people that are out there that just do basic stuff and some advanced stuff. I'm not saying that's not. 15-inch are going to be for people that want to have a bigger screen. They're beautiful screens. 13 inches if you want to travel a little bit more and have, people like the kind of the compactability of them. That's great as well. So that's kind of the Air lineup. And then don't forget that M1. That's the only one I recommend in the Airs that have really 8 gigs of RAM. That's kind of the only one that I recommend. And the other ones I always recommend going into 16. So, all right. So now we're on the Pros, and the Pros are even more, a little bit more complicated, but I think I have an easy way to do this. There's all these Pros in here. They start over here at this $15.99. This only comes with 8 gigs of RAM, and then you come down this line, and you can see it goes all the way down here to the Maxes, right? And I'm talking the 15-inch or 14-inch right now. I'm sorry. So what you want to do in here is I tell people don't really get this one right here for $15.99. If you're going to be buying this, I think you should really consider the M2 Pro. You can buy that used or refurbished or even sometimes new right now for about $15.50, or you can get it from Apple's refurbished store for about $15.50, and it's just better than this. You get way more RAM, you get the same disk on the hard disk space, you get a little bit more cores. It's going to be about the same speed, give or take, but you just get more value from that. So I kind of say stay away from this. As soon as you start adding things in here, you can see that the price goes up to $17.99 pretty quickly, and then you have this one sitting at $19.99. So who buys the Pros first of all? This is for people that do the video editing, that they want to do music production. They have specific reasons why they need a system like this. They have to do 3D modeling, like I said, for work, or they're doing coding. Something that pays you back money is where you want to get into the Pro models. And again, 8 gigs of RAM just doesn't cut it. So when we look at this whole lineup in here, the best thing that sticks out, the best value of all the Pros, the thing that I think you should get no matter what, is just 2 versions. This version right over here, which is $19.99, comes with more cores. It comes with 11-core CPU, 14-core GPU versus the 8-core over here and 10-core. So you get massive jumps in cores. You go from 8 gigs of RAM up to 18 over here, and you get the same 512. So really, you get a lot more for just a little bit more money, and it's $19.99. This is one of the best values that they sell at Apple right now. Now you can go up a little bit on this. So let's say you want to buy this model and you want to go over here and let's say you want to select this and you want to add more space to this, or you want to even add a little bit more RAM. But let's just say we want to add a little bit more space. That's $200 more. Even at this cost of $21.99, for a system that's got 16 gigs of RAM or 1 terabyte, or let's just say you take off you want to go with 512 and you want to do 32 gig or 36 gigs of RAM, you can see in here it's only $23.99. I think that's the range you want to stay in on these Pro models, all right, for most people. Now when we go back here, you're going to see a lot of people recommending, if you keep scrolling down, you keep going in here and you see that there's going to be this Max version. But look at this jump here. So I just showed you it was up to about $2,300 and you were getting a system with 32 gigs of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. For $19.99 with the Pro chip. Down here it jumps all the way up for the Max to $31.99. You're jumping up almost $800-900 with tax, maybe $1,000. So I really think in order to buy this one right here, even start looking at this one. I know it comes with more of everything and it's going to be faster. I think you really need to know. You have to be the person that knows you need this. If you don't know you need it, don't get this. That's my best, my best advice. You think you might need it, you don't. The Pro with 36 or even 16 gigs of RAM over here, and if you want to update the disk or something, stay in that $2,100 to $2,300 price range. It's just going to be the best value. I think if you're going to be upgrading any of these over here, you got to consider the Pro or consider the M2 Pro. Go back a couple versions, or even the M1 and save even more money, because there's just not much of a difference in real-world testing from what I'm seeing online. All right, and then the 16-inch is kind of a no-brainer. You only need that really if you need that big screen. Otherwise, it's really difficult to lug this thing around. And they start at $24.99, and you're getting basically only the 18 gigs and the 512 gigabyte SSD of storage. So you can see here, it's just not a great value unless you need that bigger screen. So it just comes down to screen size here, and if you absolutely need it, then you can start looking at these. But I would always consider the 14-inch. It's just so much easier to work with, so much easier to carry if you're going to be going places with it. And that's really what it's for. Even if you're connecting to a monitor at home, it just looks, it's going to be smaller footprint on your desk. Just a better system overall. But if you want that 16-inch, again, you're going to pay up for it. And the only thing I can really recommend here, again, is going to be most likely somewhere in this mid-range one, which is probably the best value for $28. You get double the RAM, and it just depends if you need it. If you're going to be up in this Pro version and you need this big screen, you might as well spend a little bit more, obviously to get, you're spending so much money, just spend a little bit more so you can kind of future-proof it into the future. All right, so finally, a couple more here is the studios. Now, we haven't talked a lot about these lately. Obviously, so if I look at this page, what's the best value on this page? Well, it's pretty straightforward. A couple things here. The Ultra over here, let's take a look at this. So this is the Max version of it, and you can imagine this is $19.99 only. I think this is the best value of any Apple computer. Let me just tell you why. First of all, you need a monitor. That's the problem. So if you don't have a monitor, it may not be. But if you do, this is the best value that Apple offers. It's got the 12-core CPU, 30-core GPU. It's $19.99 only. Comes with 32 gigs of RAM. Think about that, 32 gigs, 512 gigabyte SSD. So if you look at the Max here, and then we go back over here to the Pros, right? So let's go to the 14-inch Pros. The cheapest we can get into the Max over here is going to be $31.99 for the M3 Max. See that? $31.99. But if we go way over here now, and we get over to, let me see if I can get over there. Here, this is now, they didn't come out with the M3 yet, but still, the M2 Max they're selling brand new, you can get for $19.99. And the RAM is still 32 gigs, and you get all that extra RAM. So this value is like what, 1,100 to 1,200 bucks cheaper than what you can get on the laptop. So you can obviously probably even throw in a nice screen in there and maybe stretch it out to the studio display if you can get a sale or get it refurbished. I think they're like $13.50. You're going to be close. So if you don't need to travel a lot, I think this is the best value of any Apple computer they have. And then this Ultra chip over here, starting at $39.99, I just don't think anyone really needs that. I think at the end of the day, you just don't need it. I think this is plenty for you. If you do need it, there's going to be a specific reason why you do, and you already know you do. So if you're just starting out with Macs and you just don't know what system to get, absolutely that's not for you because you don't know you need it. But if you know you're going to be doing video editing and you know you're going to be doing stuff like that, then stick with the Macs. It's going to be plenty for almost anybody. All right, and then finally, the Mac Pros. And let me just say, if you're thinking about a Mac Pro, you should probably go into the doctor and get a lobotomy because something's wrong with you. And that's all I got to say, right? So that's the end of that. Never buy a Mac Pro again until they change it. Terrible value. They start at $7,000, $8,000 and they go up to like $12,000, $15,000, and the performance isn't there. So just don't buy them. Stick with the studios and stick with the Pros and build those up. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. I know this is maybe not that most useful. I'm just kind of giving you my take on this. What I like to do in all these systems is, like I said, Apple does this on purpose, but the Mac Minis are good starter computers or computers that people have monitors for and they don't want to get into the ecosystem, but they're much more capable with the Pro chip, which I showed you before. The iMacs are great because it gives you both worlds. If you want to start at $12.99 for a home computer, you get that screen, it gets you in the ecosystem. That's how I became so happy with using Macs, as the screen, not so much the computer. I love the screen and how beautiful they were, so you get that experience as well. But if you're going to get up to like more than $1,700 maybe, then look at the laptops, the Pros, because then you have the best of both worlds, the screen and mobility. But overall, I think these are just fun systems and something that you should always get once in your life. And then the Airs, again, there's 3 levels of them. The M1 is still good if you can get it for $750. The other ones, obviously, maybe not, but you have to decide what size you want. And basically, on the Airs, don't build it up too much. Otherwise, you're going to be in Pro territory. You just get the Pro. It's a little bit thicker, but it's still better value. And then finally with the Pros, like I had mentioned before, I still think that it just depends obviously what you want to get. Let me get to the Pros here. So the Pros is going to be the M3 Pro for $19.99. That's the best value probably in all the laptops that Apple sells. It's the one you should get if you can afford it. And if you don't think you need more than that, or if you know you don't need more than that, then you don't. So just get that one and you'll be going to be fine with it. If you need doing stuff where you need those other ones, then you can look for those. You know who you are, but you're probably not the person watching this video. And then the studios are great if you have your own monitor, again, but the Ultra you don't need. I'm telling you, you don't need that. The Max is plenty. Stick with the Max, the best value at $19.99. Probably the best value of overall of all the computers Apple sells. And that's it. So I'm going to wrap it up here. We'll talk to everybody soon. I hope it helped a little bit. I know I'm rifling through this. Peace.